Rick here with Raptorazor, and we're over on Molokai with our good friend Steve-O, and we just took down a nice little axis buck, and we're going to demonstrate the gutless technique with the big game skinner and the MANŌ. The biggest advantage of doing the gutless technique in a hot weather like this is we're getting the animal, once it's shot, completely broke down, hide off, quartered out, and on ice within 20 to 30 minutes. And we're not having to open up the stomach cavity, transferred blood, bacteria. As you can see, there's a lot of flies here, and the longer we prolong the processing time, the more chance of meat will spoil. So we're going to get at it. Doing the gutless technique, we're actually opening them up from the center of the back, and we'll come right down the spine of the animal using the big game skinner. And what we do is we'll open him up, down, all the way to the tail. And we're just taking our time here so we don't cut into the meat. Opening them up, and we're going to take the front shoulder off first. So we'll spin 360 around the leg, and then we'll come right back up to the hide, or to the spine. Now when you're doing this, you got to go a little bit soft so you don't cut into the meat, especially on the hind quarter. So the back of the big game skinner is what we're skinning with, designed out to the ulu blade, and it makes real quick work out of skinning. As long as you put the housing right on the flesh, it actually acts as a guided skinner. And those of you that are looking at this and saying, oh, you're ruining the hide, we have hides for days. So we can't save all the hides. It costs money to have them tanned and hide and processed. Just don't have the room for it. But we're only skinning the portion of meat that you can see we're in the dirt. The biggest challenge we have is keeping everything clean. So we don't want to skin more. You want to hold that, see? We don't want to skin more than we're going to take. Otherwise, it opens up the chance of getting more hair and dirt and contaminating the meat. Now the front shoulder, there's no bone, so we can take it right off with the big game skinner. What this does, it opens it up so we're not fighting the shoulder blade to go after the back strap. And that back strap starts right there. I'm going to throw this right in a game bag. And I like to take a front shoulder and a hind quarter for each game bag. We'll come back on that leg. We're just putting that, keeping it out of the dirt. Come this way, right? So we're gonna continue down just to that hip bone is all the further we need to be. And you can see that hip bone right there. And that's as far as we're going to take it. Now we're coming down the spine and we'll come back up. But where that hip bone is, we're going to cut at a 45. And then we're going to come right on the top. And we're angling the blade a little bit into the spine. That ensures that we're not going to lose any meat. And we're just taking this, following the bone all the way up. We'll just roll this right on out. Now all this silver skin, we want to leave all that on because that helps protect it. I'll even leave it on if I throw it in the freezer if it doesn't get eaten right away. Goes right in the freezer, and then one time we'll clean it up, throw it on the barbecue. And I like to grab, and with the MANŌ, it becomes the extension of your finger. You got more control with it. We're just cutting up as far as we can. We're going to take, you can see that nice back strap that goes in a separate game bag. Now we're going to come in and take the neck meat. And we can do the gutless technique typically faster than most people can gut an animal. So right here, we're going to cut back. Hit that artery right there. What's that?
I put this in one separate bag.
And we're just peeling off one side of the neck. We're taking it all the way down to the esophagus. Well, you know you're halfway. And then we're taking it all the way up to the ear. Now, axis deer and deer in general, there's not a whole lot of meat on the ribs, so we typically don't. I can go with the same one as the back strap. So we typically do not take the rib cage out. If we want the heart and liver, though, we can go in and go after that. This guy's got a little bit of scours going on. Not sure what's going on there, but we'll ensure that we keep the meat clean. Now when you're doing the hind quarter, and less pressure is always better with the big game skinner. You don't want to go too deep and cut through the hind quarter. Now we're just peeling this back. Now your hind quarter is going to be a lot tighter skin than most of the other animal. You got to take a little more time. And that's where the big game skinner just pushing your way through. It always helps if you got two guys to hold and lift. Now, it's just been a few minutes and we almost have this buck halfway done. I'm going to switch over to my MANŌ. Give me a little more precision cutting on this. Get this going so we don't get hair. Alright. Get back with the big game skinner. Oop, I'll hold that up. Now we'll show you a trick with the hind quarter to ensure that we don't lose any meat. We're in Hawaii, so we don't have to show proof of sex. We're hunting on private property. I'll go ahead and lay that back down. And we're actually going to pop this joint real quick. And we're going after the flat joint. So we're actually run our fingers along the shin bone. You'll see a little bit of a dimple there. And I like to keep it on the animal. You got more leverage. And then give it a spin, get the separation so we're not, we're gonna hold that. I don't want to drop this in the dirt. And the whole time we're just taking care that we're not gonna drop anything back into the dirt. Now, before we open up the animal, most guys will come in, pop the hind quarter from the inside socket. We're going to come from the outside first, along the spine, and we're going to peel it back on the inside of that hip joint and pelvis. And right here, you'll see a butt bone, and it actually sticks out like a thumb. We just want to cut around it. And by doing this, we're going to save this whole chunk of meat that would typically, you'd end up losing a section of it and not get it off with the hind quarter. But on bigger game, such as elk, moose, this is essential to do first, because it makes life so much easier when you go to pop the ball joint. And I'll put my foot under, and then when I come in to pop it, and you're using the weight of the hind quarter to release it, and then when you pop that joint, the whole thing comes off in one chunk, and you're not losing that chunk of meat right there. We already got the leg off, nice and clean. And as you notice, we're only skinning the portion of meat that we're taking at any one given time. All right, so we just have one more thing to get, and that is the tenderloin. A lot of people ask us when we're doing the gutless technique, how do we get the tenderloin? Right here is your last rib, your short ribs, your hip bone. You're gonna open it up. Be careful not to nick the intestines. And where the short rib is literally where you want to cut. Again, so you can see right here, that is your tenderloin. And we're going to take it all the way up. You don't have to worry about nicking anything, because this spine goes down the equal distance that you see on the top. And then we'll open him up down the hip. Then sure. And you hear that down there? That's all bone. Your stomach is where my hand is pushing down. And all we're doing is going in, peeling that off. Gonna take the top. And we take this all the way back up under that short rib. And you just be careful not to nick that stomach. You'll only do it once. But beautiful tenderloin. And that goes in with our back strap. That is half the deer done. So we're gonna do the other half. At this point, if you wanted to keep skinning, you wanted the heart and liver, basically you can backstroke with a saw, open this up and pop it open, reach in, get the heart. Typically it's shot up. So we're not gonna take that. And then also if you wanted the rib cage, you could do the same thing. So we're just keeping everything clean. And we're going to take the front leg off first. The more dirt you can get off the hide, it's going to help save your blades. And the unique thing with the big game skinner, it acts as a pipe cutter, and you can go 360 around the leg to open the hide as well as to pop the joint. The biggest benefit of doing the gutless technique is the quality of meat you end up with at the end of the day. By the time it makes it back to the dinner table, the quality of meat is so much better because it is cooled down quicker. You're not dealing with the flies, not having to gut the animal, transfer that blood and bacteria to the other cuts of meat. And you got more time to enjoy with the friends and family, drink a beer, and the other guy can pack out the whole carcass and exert himself. Typically, if you're going to gut the animal, pack it out, put it on the truck, take it back to the house or the barn, you're going to spend a minimum 2 to 3 hours, sometimes more if you got to travel with warmer conditions. With global warming, it's even more important. But as you see, our hands are nice and clean. We didn't have to open up anything, and we're not covered in blood. We're not stepping in blood. There's that second front shoulder. You can see nice and clean. Even though we're in dirt, it's dry, it's dusty, we got nice clean quarters. Look at our game bags. They're nice and clean. It's so important when you're processing game is to stay clean. You don't want to step and walk over the animal. The more you move around, the more potential you have to contaminate the hide and the meat. So all we're doing is just rolling that hide down just enough to get to the back strap. Again, we're coming in where the joint is, and my hands are a little bit dirty. So we're just gonna come over, clean them, get the dirt off. And that's where this silver skin comes into play. We want to leave that on. So that hip joint, we're coming back at a 45. We're coming down the spine. Hey, almost got myself. And then we're just rolling this out. And with your back strap, it's your best cut of meat next to the tenderloin. We're just taking that up right down to the bone. We're throwing all our neck meat, tenderloin, all in one bag. There's your second back strap. You can see how nice that is. A lot of guys will have the tendency to pull that off. Resist the urge. Keep it on there. It'll help protect the meat. Coming in. We're going to continue this right on up. And this neck meat is good for stew, burger. I typically just clean it up and throw it in. We already had a portion of that. I'm going to slice that off. It fell into the dirt. Get my hand clean again. And again, we're taking it down to the esophagus. And making sure, anytime you got bloodshot or dirt, you're better off cutting it out and leaving it rather than contaminating the meat. Hold on. Okay, so we're coming back in, running 360 around. See that nice clean cut, and I'm not pulling hard on this, essentially, or especially with the hind quarter. You want to keep that nice and smooth, so you're not digging into that nice muscle. lift that up. Here, let me actually get this around the Achilles first. Oh, look at it. Oh, it's still there. Thought he had lost it. Is it that? Oh.
No, we stay in the bush cleaning the bin. We stay in the bush cleaning the bin. By the bee. By the bee. Yeah. Mine was yes.
So we're coming in again right where the flat joint is. We're going to find that sweet spot. Just pull that up. And I like to give it a couple twists to get the separation and then cut it. You want to hold that, guys, so it doesn't drop in the dirt. And then we can lay that right back down on the hide. And again, we're coming from the back side.
You guys get that?
Here, pop that up again. Here, go a little bit more so I can. Hey, we're open. All right. Maybe just hold that. Just hold it down a little bit. So we're coming along the spine, find the hip bone, and just feel around where your muscle groups are. Be careful if you cut too deep, you'll get into the stomach because that hip bone doesn't go all the way. But we're gonna just bone this out all the way to the socket, which is gonna be right there. And then you want to cut around the butt bone. And then I put the foot under. And once you're through that joint, here's hindquarter number 2. The only thing we got left to do is reach in and get the tenderloin. So again, we're finding that last rib, the hip joint. Your short ribs are right there. And you're just opening this up, pushing the stomach down. You're going to cut along that ball joint that opens up all the way back up to the hip. Reach in and pull out. Nice tenderloin. And that's it. That is the gutless technique. We're taking all the prime cuts of meat and doing it in a fraction of the time. For more educational videos, check us out, Raptorazor.com. Steve-O, always a pleasure.
It's a wrap.